and we are moving forward with our next topic, mastering Xpath for SEO, data extraction techniques. And we welcome David Gossage, SEO manager at Click Consult. David, nice having you today. Please introduce yourself and the stage is yours.
Thank you for having me. My name is David Gossage. I'm an SEO manager for an agency called Click Consult. I primarily work on technical SEO, and I love working on e-commerce sites. So what I'll do, I'll take it back to the year 2016, that far away land, which depressingly is 8 years ago now. And I was like a lot younger, I was a lot greener in the industry, and I was in charge of quite a large website migration. So it was an e-commerce site of about 10,000 products. And one of the tasks that I had to do was to make sure that all of the content that was on the old site is present on the new site, which was quite a daunting task when you're talking like over 10,000 pages. And when I was trying to figure out how to do that, my boss at the time says, "Why don't you use custom extraction?" And I was like, "Well, what's one of them?" And when he showed me, like, my mind was blown. The idea that I can get any that I can do check thousands of pages in one go was like really something. So I made it my mission at the time to learn everything there is to know about them, and become the expert. So I'm here today to share that with you. Hang on, I'm on the wrong. Here we go. So a couple of things to bear in mind. So what you need is some really basic HTML knowledge, and when I say basic, I'm talking like, what is an HTML tag? If you can master that, then you'll be able to do the rest. I'm going to be going through this quite fast, so the deck will be shared at the end by the SE ranking team. So you can put your notepads away, and for now I just want you to understand the fundamentals, and once you've learnt them, I'll also share a cheat sheet with you as well. And I will be focusing on Screaming Frog. There are other scraping tools available, but Screaming Frog is the most popular, so I'm going to focus on that one. So I'll start off with the at the very beginning, and that is, what is a custom extraction? So according to Screaming Frog, a custom extraction allows you to scrape any data from the HTML of a web page using Xpath or Regex. And the translation of that is, you can get any piece of information from any web page in bulk, which is a really powerful tool if you know how to use it correctly. And there's a number of tools they can use for this. So as I mentioned, there is a Screaming Frog. You can do it in Google Sheets, or you can even create your own tool if you've got skills, or if you know how to use ChatGPT. But for now, let's look at Screaming Frog. So if you want to do a custom extraction, just go into Configuration, Custom, and then Custom Extraction. And then click Add, and then add your XPath in here. And then when you go to your, when you run your crawl, go to the Custom Extraction tab, and on the right-hand side is all of the custom extraction results. So this, in this example, I've decided to do an extraction of all the H1 headings. Although Screaming Frog does have its own built-in extraction. So if you see here, you got your title, you got your meta description, you got your H1, and these are these all work in exactly the same way. It's just that Screaming Frog has already pre-programmed them in. But you can do your own. I'll go through some examples now. You can also do it in Google Sheets. So the import XML formula is a built-in formula within Google Sheets. So here's an example of one. So you just type in equals import XML, put your URL or the cell which has your URL in it, and then do //h1 or whatever you want your XPath to be. And it will pull in the data directly into your spreadsheet. So here's an example of one that I made earlier. So it's just a real-time saver if you're got your head buried in a spreadsheet. Now, there's two ways they can do an extraction. Well, there's other ways, but I'll focus on these two. There's Xpath and there's Regex, and Regex tends to be a bit more popular. So I'll give you an example here. So you've got a snippet of HTML and you want to extract the contents of this h1 tag. And all you do is that you replace the text that you want to extract with $? Easy as that. However, if you then start to add some complexities in there, so say if I put a class in the h1 tag, if I put a line break in there, if I put some white space in there, suddenly that regex starts to look like this, and it gets very complicated very quickly. However, to do the same extraction in Xpath is this. So, as mentioned, regex tends to be more popular because the barrier to entry for learning is a lot lower. However, it does get complicated very quickly. So once you get past the basics, it becomes very difficult to use. However, it does have its uses. So if you're wanting to extract a specific part of your schema, or if you're or if there's a specific text snippet, it does come in really useful for that. Xpath, it can be more difficult to get your head around the basics, but once you've learned those basics, it's a lot easier to use for more complicated queries, and it's perfect for extracting any the contents of any HTML tag. So I'm going to start off with an example. And here is a title tag, and this title tag is within the head tag, and that is also within the HTML tag. So the structure of that tag is HTML head title. So all you do, put a slash in between them, and if you put this within into Screaming Frog as custom extraction, it will actually extract the title of every page. Easy as that. However, we can make it easier. So rather than having to know the full HTML structure of every tag on your page, you can just replace it with a double slash, and that will search the entire document for any title tags. And as a little pro tip, if you want to test this, you can go into your Chrome DevTools. So just right click on your web page and click inspect. And then if you do a search using Control F and you put your XPath in there, it will search your source code for that XPath, so you can test your XPath before you do any crawling. And that's it. You learn how to use XPath now. It's nice and easy. However, most cases are not that simple. So here we have. We want to extract the contents of a div, but there's on this random example of a page that I was looking at, there are 500 divs. So therefore, it's just not feasible to go as basic as in the previous slides. And when you start to look at, this is the source code of a relatively simple page, and it can very quickly get overwhelming, but very fast. So there's a few solutions for this. The first solution is you can go into your Chrome DevTools, as I mentioned earlier, and if you right-click on the HTML that you want to extract, click copy and then copy XPath, it will generate the XPath for you that they can then put into Screaming Frog or your crawler of choice and do the extraction for you. So here's a random example of a web page that I did this for. So this one was curious.co.uk. And this is the example of the XPath. Now, to break it down what this means, this is the fourth div tag within the first div tag, within the first div tag, within the fifth div tag, within the second div tag, within the first div tag, within anything with an ID of product search results. And it's just horrible. Yeah, so it's impossible to debug. It's a complete mess, and anyone who's starting off will see that and go, "Well, I'm not going to learn that. It's just horrific to use." There is a solution B, and this is Screamer Frog has its own built-in Xpath generator. Now, if you're interested to learn, this is really good. There are some restrictions, and it can be a little bit slow. But it's quite a powerful and impressive tool. However, my preferred method is to target the HTML tag attributes. So you might be asking, what is an attribute? One of the more common examples that you'll come across is a class, and the attribute is basically the little bit that goes within an HTML tag. Is the simplest way to explain it. And here's some attribute types that some of you may be familiar with. So you've got your classes. You might have a nofollow attribute within a link, or you've got your link address as well. And there's all sorts of attributes, but these are some of the common ones. And yeah, so if we look at the structure of this HTML tag, so you got your tag type, which is div, then you got your attribute type here, which is class, and then you got your attribute value here, which is page result count in this example. So what we can then do is that we can turn this into an XPath, and there's two ways to do this. Now, I call these exact match and phrase match because I work in digital marketing. It's kind of ingrained into me. So we'll have a look at the exact match example first. So you start off with your //div, and as I explained before, this will search the entire document for every single div tag that's in your HTML. And then you open your square brackets to @class equals page result count, and this will detect any HTML div tags where the class equals page result count. So in this example, it will extract the contents of this tag. Solution 2 is what I would call phrase match. And again, you don't have to remember the exact syntax. You just have to remember that it is possible, because I will be sharing this at the end. But in this example, you can use a contains function, and in this example, we want to search for //div for every div within the document, and then narrow it down to any div that contains a class and page result count. Now, here's 3 examples of classes that it will detect, and so it will detect examples like in the previous one. However, it will also detect if there are multiple classes, multiple values within a class, and it will also detect if the class value contains page result count. So, for example, it's got -info at the end as one example. So you do need to be careful, because you may end up extracting tags that you didn't intend to. Which is why I prefer the exact match, because you have more control over it. But this is useful in examples where you don't have that level of a granularity on your page. Now, sometimes the HTML tag that you're trying to extract won't have a class, or it won't have any attributes at all. So, say in this example, I want to extract the anchor text of this link. Now, there's nothing within the A tag that is unique, so I will then want to target the HTML tag that it's contained within, so its parent element. So here, I've got your. So again, we start off with //div, search for every div where the class equals target in this example. And then at the end, you just put /a, and this will extract the anchor text of every link that appears within this div. However, sometimes it's not that simple. So if you've got some, if you've identified the HTML tag that you want to extract, and its parent tag doesn't contain anything unique either, and its parent tag isn't unique, so then you have to go a little bit higher up. So simply putting /a at the end won't work, but you can use double slash. And then what this will do, it will search everything within that parent HTML tag for, in this example, /a. So the difference between a single slash and a double slash. So a single slash will only extract direct child elements of the HTML tag that you're specifying, and it will not extract any child elements. Whereas a double slash will extract all child elements, regardless of how far buried they are. So it can be really good for cluttered code. But we can go a little bit further. So we can also extract attribute values. So again, we've gone back to this list. So we've got your nofollow attributes, you've got your class names, you've got your link URLs. But say in this example, we want to get the alt text of every image on a page, and we want to get the image URLs for every image on a page. So again, we do //div at class equals class name, and then we do /img to look for any image tags within that class, and then at the end we just put @alt or @src. So alt is the alt text and src is the link URL. So then you can extract like really deep information there. Or sometimes there may be like multiple divs with the same class. So an example might be if you've got a list of reviews, but you're only interested in the first review, or you might be only interested in the second review or the third review on the page. So in this example, all you do is you put your XPath in brackets, and then at the end have some square brackets with 1, 2, or whichever number of the tag that you want to extract. We also have functions as well. So I mentioned before about the contains function, but there's a couple of others as well that come in really useful. So count does what it says on the tin. If you want to know how many times a particular HTML tag is present on a page, you just put count around it. And so rather than extracting the contents of the div, it'll just tell you how many times it appears. We've got normalized space. So if you use Excel, you might be familiar with the trim function, and it just removes any white space that is around the text that you're trying to extract. Text is also a function. So in this example, I want to look for any pages that contain lorem ipsum. So I'll do /p to look for any p tag in HTML, and I'll do contains text and lorem ipsum. As simple as that. Then we also got operators. The two which I'll go through are and or, but you can also do calculations, so you can add up the values of certain XPath. Now, I won't go into that one, but that's something to look into in spare time if you're that way inclined. So, and in this example, say if your div has say if your div class has multiple values. So in this example, it's got class 1 and class 2, and we only want to match attributes where both of those are present. So you can do //div contains class and then class 1. Oh, got a typo though. Should be closing the speech marks, but no, never mind. And contains class in class 2, and then that will only extract the contents of a div where both of these class values are present. or there's the or operator as well. So say if you have a div with class equals class 1, and you got another div with class equals class 2, and you want to return the contents of either one of those divs, you can stick an or in between them. So you got //div contains class 1 or contains class and class 2. Okay, so I appreciate I've whizzed through all of that very quickly. So I hope I've not bored you too much. But here, so I've got some examples. So in this first example, say if you want to identify any thin categories on your e-commerce site. So in this example, this particular e-commerce site has kindly said at the top of the page how many products are present. So we can do //div and class equals page result count in this example, and it will tell you how many products are in each e-commerce category. Now, sometimes this little number won't be present at the top of the page. So what you can do is find some HTML that is common for each product card. So say if your product images, for example, and then you can use the count function that I showed you earlier. So that will also work, but it will only tell you how many products present on that particular page. You can also automate your so if you're doing a website migration, you can automate your redirect mapping for your products. So most e-commerce sites will have a SKU that's present on the page. So if you can extract what that SKU is, and then do a crawl of your current site, then you do a crawl of your new site, looking for the SKU on that one. Put them both into a spreadsheet, do a VLOOKUP between them to match the URLs, and suddenly you've mapped redirects for thousands of URLs at once. You can look for any internal links. So you can, in this example, if there's an article tag, I can have a look at all the links within the article tag and see which of them are external links. Or I can have a look and see which ones are external links. And in this one, I've introduced another function called not. It does what it says on the tin. You can also have a look to see if any no-follow links are present. So in this example, I look for a /article /a for all of the links within the article, and then contains rel no-follow. And then at the end, you can even put the @href to tell you what the link address is. You can crawl a whole site and find out who the author of each article is. So say if you are targeting a particular author and you want to see what they've written in the past to see if they'd be interested in hosting a piece of content that you've written, if it's relevant to what they've done. You can crawl the website and see which articles they've written. Now this one, so some of you may be familiar with some of these terms, and crappy AI content is something that can be that can hurt a site. So if you've got a lot of UGC on your site, for example, product reviews is a common one, and you see that people are using AI to write them, you can have a look for these. So you can see. Now this is an example; it'll be different for every website, but you can do a search for anything with class equals a review in this example and contains text equaling realm of, or world of, or fast-paced, or ever-changing, or in summary, or any other rubbish AI phrase that you see on so many sites, and especially LinkedIn as well. But what you can also do is you can stick the or operator between them and then put the whole thing within a single set of brackets. Oh, sorry. And then you can do a single XPath that will search for all of these at once. And that's it. That's everything you need to know about Xpath. So I appreciate I've whizzed through it very quickly. But as I say, we will be sharing this deck with you, and I'll be sharing a cheat sheet shortly as well. Now, the future, it wouldn't be an SEO talk in 2024 if I didn't talk about AI. The fact is, AI is going to deprecate pretty much everything I've just told you. So instead of learning the XPath for what you want to extract, what you can do instead is that you can just instruct AI to say, here's a piece of information that I want, extract it for every page. So here's an example of a list of URLs. Excuse me. And I've integrated AI into a Google Sheet, and all I've done is I've put a prompt in there that says, here's a list of URLs. For each URL, tell me who wrote it and what date was it published. And in this example, it's done a pretty good job. And then after I did this, a couple of weeks ago, Screaming Frog also released its own update, where it's also integrated ChatGPT into its crawler. So what you can do is you can put a prompt in that says, here's a list of articles, tell me who wrote it and when was it published, and it can do it for you. Now, the technology isn't quite there to do everything I've just described, but if you're a little bit nervous, it can do quite a lot. Okay, and that's it. So thank you, and I apologize for absolutely blasting through that. Now, here's a QR code. If you want to scan that with your phones, you can access the cheat sheet that I mentioned, or if you just go to seogreetings.com/cheat sheet, it will redirect you there as well. And yeah, so thank you very much, everyone. And yeah, I'll hand it back over.
Thank you very much, David. That was very practical, very insightful, and special thanks for the cheat sheet that you provided. That's a great bonus for our visitors today. Okay, then we can move forward to our Q&A session. We have several questions in chat, and I'll start with the one provided by Raymond. What is your advice on making Xpath queries fast and accurate, especially on big websites?
So Xpath is quite fast. So I mentioned this as Screaming Frog a few times, and I mentioned that the pre-built extractions that Screaming Frog has, and they are done using Xpath. It's just done pre-programmed in her back end. So if you can identify what the Xpath is, it will run for every page, and it won't crawl any slower than if you run a crawl without Xpath. So yeah, once you've identified what you want to extract, it's very fast.
Nice. Thanks a lot for the reply. And next one is from Roger. How do you handle Xpath when your content keeps changing or updating? What are some common mistakes with using Xpath for SEO, and how can they avoid them? So I think that we can break them into two parts, and the first one is
yeah. So I think the most common mistake is so I showed the example before where you right click on the source code and then click copy Xpath. And that feeds into what you're saying about how when the content keeps changing. So if the structure of the page changes at all, then that approach won't work. And that's why I've talked about targeting the attribute values. So unless you've done a full website migration, those attribute values are going to be consistent across the site. And they're not likely to change unless the website itself changes. So once you figured out how to target, how to identify those attributes and then target them in the Xpath, it's quite robust, and it should be fairly break proof.
Great answer. Thanks a lot. Very clear. And another one is from Diego. What's your go-to approach for using Xpath and SEO tools to check out complex site structures?
I'm not entirely sure what you mean by complex site structures. So you're talking about the HTML structure, or you're talking about the website hierarchy?
There is no specifics here. Maybe you can just pick one that you want to talk about, and if there is any clarity.
When it comes to complex HTML structure, so going back to Roger's example before, if you identify the attributes that you want to target, it's quite robust. There are some examples. So sometimes you might have websites that are built mostly using Bootstrap, for example, and then when you want to do your extraction, and you see that that the div that you're trying to target is called col12, and then you do a search for col12 and you see 112 examples of that in the source code. So that's where it gets messy. So I mentioned before about the operators. So you can look at AND operators. So you can look at what combinations of classes together will be more unique to the section of the page that you're trying to extract. But fortunately, these sites are quite rare. Yeah, most websites, especially if you've got a competent web developer, will have fairly common attribute values that are quite simple to understand.
Great, and I can see the comment from Diego. He's saying exactly. So I think that you've totally covered the question. Thanks a lot for that. And another one is from White. What XPath functions are indispensable for pulling out critical SEO data?
Okay, so most of the time, I don't tend to use functions, except for contains. I think the contains function is probably the most common one that I use, but I don't tend to think of that as a function. I just think of that as part of the XPath that I use. In terms of a dedicated function, the normalized space one is can come in handy. So a website that I used to work for had the worst source code that I've ever seen in my entire life, where 90% of the HTML was just white space. So in that, so when I was doing crawls of that site, I had to use normalized space, because otherwise I'd just end up with results that were just a complete mess.
Right. I totally understand. Thanks a lot for the answer, and thanks a lot for the presentation. That was like the first, the last question in a row, and I think that if you want to know more about XPath, you can find David in social media and ask any questions that you like to ask. But for now, we will be wrapping up. So thanks a lot, David. That was great.
Thank you very much.